Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, and regulatory landscape and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me this afternoon, we have Samir Kerbage, Chief Investment Officer of Hashdex, Dusko Kelez, CEO of Hapi, and Fabio Silva, Head of Technology at B3. And we're here to discuss the most impactful trend in Latin American financial markets in 2025 and how client demand and technology are helping to shape the offerings. It is great to see all of you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks. And Samir, I want to kick it off with you, starting with your perspective and different roles in the capital markets. What do you think will be most impactful trend or change that we could see in Latin American financial markets in 2025?
Sure. Hi, Jill. It's a pleasure to be here. So I think there's two very significant trends we've seen in LATAM, and especially as we look into Brazil. The first one is this movement of international investment. So the Brazilian investors in general, they have a very strong local bias. They tend to invest in the local market. But considering the political landscape and the economical landscape in the country, we've been seeing more and more investors looking for international investment. So looking to diversify their portfolio, get exposure to the US dollar and to equities market outside of Brazil. So this is the first big trend we're seeing. The second one is that the regulation is evolving in the country, and there's a new regulation coming in effect of this year related to transparency on financial advisors. So financial advisors will need to have more transparency on the rebates and how much they're making out of their clients. And we believe that this can be a significant trend, like a 10-year trend, that will help the ETF market to develop in the country. So those are the big significant trends that we've been seeing so far.
Right. And just go from Hapi's perspective, what are some of the trends or changes that will be most impactful for 2025?
Yeah, I think I would add from what Samir is saying, and thanks for having us, Jill. I would add the IPO market has been pretty slow from LATAM companies since the pandemic. And I think that now in 2025, we could see a reversal of that. Companies like Rappi, among others, might dip their toes and do IPOs this year, and hopefully that will bring a ton of that dynamism to the market. Moreover, also bring dynamism to a startup market, bring capital to several sources. The second big one, I would say, it's related crypto. So having a definite legal framework in the US for cryptocurrencies will also set the pace for the legal framework in Latin America and the adoption of these technologies, which, we move a ton of capital between the US and LATAM, and this will bring, this could be multiplied in a several magnitude by the adoption of crypto. So I think those two.
Yeah. And Fabio, from Hashdex's perspective, what do you think is going to really impact the market in Latin America for 2025?
Hi, Jill. Very nice to be here. Thank you for hosting me. I just want to touch the technology aspect. So we have seen that the democratization of access in Latin America is a trend, and an ecosystem that is created by fintechs with traditional companies. And we are seeing different access from different people. And there is also a generational aspect. So our parents were not used to expose in early stages in capital markets. And now we can see young people, young Brazilians that are just accessing by the digital experience that is promoted by new technologies themselves in capital markets. So I do believe that this is a trend, not just for this year, but for the next years.
Yeah. And Fabio, let's stay on that topic for a moment here. How has growing interest from both Latin and professional and retail traders in accessing the US and other international equity markets, how has that influenced the offerings to clients from Latin American platforms?
Yeah, we need to see that the globalization is a trend, and I just want to highlight that this is a two-road direction or two-direction road. I mean, we have seen interest from investors coming in Asia, Europe, and US, also to Latin America, and the opposite. So it is a matter of diversification. We do believe that it's interesting for everyone to find different places to allocate the capital.
Yeah. And Samir, from your perspective, how do you see client demand influencing offerings?
So we've seen more and more the local platforms offering easy access to the US market. This has been a significant trend over the last few years. And this is helping this movement of international exposure for the Brazilian portfolio. So this is also a very strong movement. We've seen all the platforms here in Brazil offering international accounts, so access to a broker dealer in the US where they would be able to access the securities market and the capital markets in the US. This is a strong trend. Basically, all the fintechs, all the banks here they have to offer some kind of platform to access the US market. Otherwise, they would lose to competition.
Yeah, and just go from your perspective and B3's perspective, how do you see client demand influencing how you're thinking about product development?
Yes. So, historically, access from the average Joe to the stock market has been something that has been very low. Even banking penetration overall and financial services have been low. So I think that this shift that now it's happening with the penetration of the internet in via mobile to everybody and being ubiquitous, it's starting to move the demands of these customers towards these new services. In Hapi, we took this challenge, the one to democratize the access to everybody, every individual in LATAM to access the stock market in the US and cryptos. So they can easily set up an account in under 5 minutes, make an instant deposit and start trading in real time, and especially leverage the tools that are available as a standard in the US, but that until recently were very scarce or non-existent for individuals in LATAM. These are, fractional shares, investing with almost no commissions, reinvestment of dividends, and so on. So we look forward to this adoption and seeing more people take advantage of this over time.
Right. And Dusko, that's a great survey into the question of how advanced technology is playing a role in the market evolution in the region. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so LATAM has always been a forward tech-looking region, and what we have seen, as I was mentioning, an increase, especially in internet penetration. And this is the improvements in the money movement has also helped, leveraging on top of crypto and also individually in each of the countries. We still are on the early innings of AI, so we'll see how that pans out and brings how that impacts the region. But the possibility to have in your hand and make a deposit and start trading in the stock market, which wasn't heard of until recently, it's something super powerful. What we're seeing is that more individuals are being able to grow their wealth and access these tools and also learn in the way. So we believe this is having a huge impact in the region and will continue to do so.
Yeah. And Samir, that's what you alluded to just before in terms of democratizing access. So how would you say advancements in technology has helped to play a role when you think about how LATAM has evolved?
So we've been seeing great advancements in the implementation of blockchain technology, especially when we look at tokenization of assets. So we've seen a huge movement here in Brazil of tokenizing the credit market, real estate, receivables, and this is expanding the access to a market that is normally very restricted to only professional investors and financial institutions. And this market is opening up to retail investors through tokenization. So we're seeing like a huge demand for tokenized assets as alternative investments. Stable coins, big adoption of stable coins. That's also been a strong tailwind in Brazil. And we have the central bank, the government, developing a blockchain technology to tokenize the capital markets. So this is a strong movement. This is Brazil leading the pack in terms of this technology, implementing the blockchain technology to make markets more efficient.
Hashdex has been on the show for a number of years, and we're constantly talking about how that's impacting what you're seeing, with crypto services and what's available. How has technology really helped to evolve that space when you think about the LATAM market?
Jill, it's important to highlight that at B3, as a traditional exchange, we need to be delivering robustness most of everything else. So we are all the time looking for the best technology to support our business. So robustness, resilience, latency, scalability is part of our core strategy, So we are monitoring the trends, capturing what could be adding value to our business. I can mention that we have already in the regulated space, one clearinghouse up running cloud. I do believe that this is one of the first use case worldwide. And just leveraging in what Samir mentioned, we are quite connected also to DLT and the use cases that DLT could offer to the market. So we have announced it already, for example, that our new CSD technology will support DLT features to reduce cost for the clients in terms of reconciliation, for example. So definitely there is a trend to innovate. Even in traditional business, we need to innovate in order to offer the best services to the clients.
And Samir, what were the key factors that contributed to the leadership that you have within the crypto space? And what should American investors understand about Brazil's approach to crypto regulation and the marketplace?
So the regulators in Brazil, they approach crypto in a very open way, I would say. Like the Brazilian investors, they've been having investors in crypto. We've seen adoption growing over the last few years. And the regulators decided to embrace and basically define clear rules that would protect investors. And this allowed us to launch the world's first crypto index ETF out of Brazil. And this has been one of the most successful ETFs on B3, on the Brazilian market. And since that ETF was approved and started trading, it hit all the records in Brazil, in the ETF market in Brazil, just like we saw the Bitcoin ETFs last year in the US. And what's important to note is that after those ETFs were approved and start trading, we started to see financial institutions access crypto, start exploring the technology, and starting to get in this technology, both offering service to their clients, but also implementing blockchain technology in their own business. So the ETF in that sense was a big milestone for the adoption of crypto in Brazil as a whole for financial institutions. And we're seeing the same thing playing out in the US. So as the ETFs were very successful, we're starting to see financial institutions more interested about blockchain technology, about crypto, seeing this as a serious thing, as something that is regulated and that can be offered to their clients. So like what we saw in Brazil 3 years ago is exactly what we see now in the US, of course, in a whole different scale because the US market is so huge.
Yeah. And Fabio, you've embarked on a major post-trade modernization program for B3. How do you see this contributing to the overall health of the Brazilian economy as well as the region?
Yeah, definitely is part of the evolution of the region. The modernization program, I'm quite proud to talk about that because we used to say that modernization should be seen as InfoSec is seen by most of the companies, not as a single shot every 10 years, every 15 years, but as a constant evolution and a constant program. So we are dealing with the modernization of our post-trading with an ecosystem of partners. Nasdaq is part of this ecosystem, so it is part and our partner in this modernization. And in my view, I will sum up with two major aspects. Modernization is the best way to prepare future growth in a smooth way. So we need to be prepared to what will happen in the next 10 to 15 years. And also, we need to improve experience. It's a matter of delivering, just again, leveraging in what Samir mentioned. We are delivering different products. We have ETFs on crypto. We have futures on Bitcoin. And we are discussing, it's not a decision, we are discussing about operations 24/7 or at least extending the operations. So this has to do with modernization and how technology should support the business decision with availability of those solutions.
So when you think about, Fabio, the next 3 to 5 years out, even a little bit more near term than 15 years, where do you think technology is going to play the greatest role when it comes to the organizational strategy?
It's very hard to talk about 3 to 5 years. I can see myself seeing this video and in 3 years and repenting about some of my comments. But what I can say is that Already 2025, technology is in the core of our company. We don't define ourselves anymore as a traditional exchange, but a technology company. I will just illustrate that saying that we had an important event in the last December where we call that B3 Day, presenting strategy to investors. And we have a strong statement saying that we want to be the platform that accelerates the results of our clients. And this has to do with technology. So it's not just about 3 to 5 years, but 2025, we have technology in the core of our strategy.
Yeah. And Dusko, I'll ask the same of you in a different way. What are some of the challenges that financial services still face in Latin America? And how do you think customer preferences are going to help to evolve and find solutions for that?
Yes. So, one of the big challenges that we still face in LATAM is, of course, education of the financial services, being that penetration of these financial services has been so low over time. People don't really know yet a lot of concepts that are basic and that are needed to be learned. We do see a quick evolution in this learning curve. Customers are every time demanding better services and demanding more access and evolving during this learning curve. But we still see things like, for example, when you mentioned that Hapi is a US stockbroker, member of FINRA, covered by the CPIC, and so on. In the US, it's pretty clear that this means that we have a ton of scrutiny, that our processes are supervised, and that we do things by the book. But in LATAM, these concepts about regulation and what it means to be licensed, it's still in its early days. So we still have a ton of work to do helping people to understand the difference between regulation or a regulatory landscape, a license in the US from a random country elsewhere. Also, we're seeing that customers evolve to start adopting these new technologies, as I was mentioning, and a virtuous cycle happening. So the more these customers are using the technology, the better results they're getting, and the more they evolve in their learning curve. We see a rapid implementation of these services among their peers. They start to tell their friends, they start to tell their peers that this is something that can really change your life, that can really help you move forward financially, and that everybody should adopt.
All right. And finally, Samir, to wrap up here, what specific learnings from Brazil do you think can be applied to crypto in its future in the US? And what's your more near-term outlook for the space?
I think as the regulatory environment improves in the US, that's going to stimulate adoption of crypto from financial institutions, especially related to tokenization and stablecoins. The offer of ETFs and the demand of ETFs, this is the preferred vehicle for institutional investors, for professional investors to access this space. And we expect that this market will continue to evolve and continue to surprise investors in record demand. So this is what we saw in Brazil after the ETF market was open to crypto. We started to see banks involving and offering services, offering tokenized access to the credit market, to private markets. And we believe that with regulatory clarity in the US, that's going to happen in the US as well. Again, in a different scale than the LATAM market.
All right. We appreciate all of your insights into the industry and the region. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.